Hello, everybody, and welcome in to the first off-season IDP Plus Mailbag show. I am Justin Frye at FFF Ballers on Twitter. He is Joe Harlow at Jolo63 on X. Sorry about that. Welcome in. Good to be back. Been a month and a half or so, Joe. How you doing?
Been good. Just watching playoffs. It's one of those things. Neither of our teams are in the playoffs. It's kind of nice just to watch as a fan sometimes, but also then our team isn't in there. So
Yeah, I don't like this after a few years now of not being in, but
I feel you.
I'm into
We were
rookie.
spoiled.
Into rookie mode already. So
Oh yeah, I know we've been doing so much scouting, a bunch of articles in there for various prospects
yeah,
and such. Yeah, it is good to be back. Thank you, IDP Plus Network.
absolutely. So if you are not already a member, you should absolutely hop in. We've got a whole bunch of great content coming out this week. And I mean, every week we've got 4 to 5 articles at least a week, if not more. I think this week we've been pushing out rookie rankings for defensive players. So we'll probably touch on some of those articles next week. Joe and I are authored a couple of them. There'll be the following week. There'll be some offense. We'll talk about that as we go through here. But at least for on the IDP side, I know you need to be a member, and you when you join, you also get access to our Discord channel, and where you can talk to all of our guys and get help when you're coming up on rookie drafts, talk trades, talk whatever. Obviously, you can ask us questions here. That's what we're here for this weekly podcast. But I mean, you'll get daily access. I mean, people are always in there checking. So sign up and join the team. And as always, ask us questions as we go. We've got, as you can see at the top of the screen, we have a website where you can, or an email account where you can send us questions. We'll touch on as many as we get. We'll hop through some other topics we want to talk about.
It's an exciting time of the year. Yeah. Super Bowl coming up in a handful of days now. Wild. Then gonna hit. Then it's off-season time. I know. It's my favorite time is draft season, so it's going to be really exciting to get into there. I know my linebacker rookie rankings and breakdown came out yesterday, and then Steve Scholl's, Big Steve G, I think is his. Oh, what is his name on X? I'm blanking on it.
Have to pull it up quick.
Yeah, thank you. While I talk, he put out his DT rankings this week or today, and some big names in there, literally and figuratively. So this week we're putting out the defensive positions. Next week we're hitting offensive. And over the previous couple of weeks, we've also released our dynasty rankings, which does not include these rookies yet. So you'll see an absence of a Caleb Williams and Drake May in my quarterback rankings that I did. But so tune in. We've got offense, defense, everything in between. We'll have some mock drafts in. I put one out a couple weeks ago, and
he's at Big Steve FF on X.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so
I'll plug my own stuff. I think my edge prospects comes out tomorrow, and my safeties come out on Thursday too. So I don't know if you hit on that while I was looking that up. But
I couldn't remember the dates on them, so I didn't want to.
It's okay. I know they're back to back. I think it's tomorrow and the next day. And then cornerbacks, I can't remember who's writing that. That should come out on Friday.
Yeah. Offense next week. And I'm writing quarterbacks. So there'll be some fun things in that article. Including a surprise QB1 to some.
Yeah. With that, you wanna so this first question we got is a doozy. So we'll just share the screen so you can actually see it.
Yeah, the question is really like how many rookies kind of get in a redraft league or a keeper league in this scenario will get picked. So it's kind of where we're going to start. And then, Justin will show.
So
here.
The first thing is they bring up redraft versus keeper. At least for me, roster size is this big.
Just 38 is what
Yeah,
our friend said.
38, and they keep one offense, one defense, one athlete every year. The athlete gets turned back and forth between offense and defense, and they're a one-year keeper, whereas the regular offense and regular defensive players are two-year keepers. So you get 3 total keepers each, or to pick 3 keepers each year, and you keep 5 total people once you get into it.
Yeah, I think first year's 3 keepers, and then
yeah.
Also going to address Sean real quick. No, it's not Bo Nix. If you listen to Mock Draft Monday that came out yesterday, you will know that a lot of the IDP Plus staff is not in on Bo Nix, really. I was surprised there were so many of us out. I thought I would be alone there, but he's not QB1 for me.
So, sorry, 38 roster spots, 3 to 5 keepers. The first thing I'm going to say is I would ignore the whole aspect that this is a keeper league, just for draft purposes. If you're only keeping 3 people picking 3 people out of the 36, I guess, or 35 you're drafting, then I truly just don't care, I guess, is the way I'll phrase it, that you get to keep that small of a number when I'm drafting. Does that make sense? And do you agree with that?
I do agree with that, especially as we don't have in here, and we should say the question came from Zion PNUMBRA. I think that's Zion Penumbra 4395.
Yeah.
So thank you for the question. And
yes.
Did not say in there whether what the keeper price is, if it's if you draft Justin Jefferson in the 6th round as a rookie, that you get him in the 6th round, or if it's you have drafted Justin Jefferson, so you just get him, and that's kind of outside of the draft. So that kind of changes it a little bit. Obviously, I don't know, we were talking about pre-show, Jack Campbell, it's the top rookie linebacker from this class. Probably not going to keep him just without a value, but if he's a 38th rounder, that kind of changes it. So take that in mind as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And so the crux of the question, like Joe said, 14 team league, aggressive IDP scoring, tight end premium, super flex. How many rookies are you expecting to come off the board? So what I did kind of to think about this a little bit was I actually went through the IDP Invitational draft, since, like I said, I'm looking at it as a redraft league. That's only 30 players picked, and that is 12 teams in each division. So I had access to 7 divisions I could go through, and they were between 27 and 37 rookies drafted. So you project that out to a few extra rounds, you're looking at, I don't know, probably around 50-ish once you go to a 14-teamer on average. And for me, that's mostly going to be offensive players. Like Joe just said, the only keeper, I think, that's a locked-in keeper if you're going without price in there, if you don't have to forfeit the pick in the round that you pick them, or they get progressively more expensive if they move earlier, would be Will Anderson.
And I think Devon Witherspoon would be there too if they have corners. Maybe Jalen Carter if they're defensive tackles, but those are... Yeah.
I do kind of assume that that's the type of league this would be. If the roster size is 38, that's why I went to IDP Invitational too, is my general assumption. We don't actually have anything beyond what we have in front of us. So my thought is that it's probably start 11 on each side of the ball with a redraft league that's that deep. So there's probably some sort of a requirement like that, but at the same time, it's pretty minimal. So I do think that you can absolutely target offense rookies for keepers, but I would also just be hesitant a little bit with that, because just going through the Invitational, looking at it, I'm seeing these people picking Rashee Rice or Tank Dell in the 30th round, and I'm just
Yeah.
The value there is crazy, regardless of whether or not you have to pay that price to keep them. So you can draft better players earlier, not focusing as much on I need to get this rookie for keeper aspect of it. But
Yeah.
what are your
And
thoughts?
yeah, I kind of agree. And I'm in another league that the startup draft was this past season. That is a 12 team keeper. The startup draft went 33 rounds, and it's on sleeper, so there were not defensive tackle or cornerback designations. There were 50 rookies taken, and it was about a 40-10 split. Maybe it was closer to 41-13. Not remembering 100% right now, but it was in that range for offense to defense. So, yeah, and towards the end, it was really just kind of spamming rookies. Like a Dwayne McBride sort of pick was in the 30th round, just in case. But
yeah, so that wasn't the case as much with the Invitational, just because the benches are so short. So I do think that there's a likelihood that it's probably over 50, and that's something that wasn't really in there. So 50 is probably the baseline, and in a good offense year like this year's draft is going to be, I would anticipate that being even higher.
Then the defensive side, it's a little weird, especially at the edge. There's not much.
Well, the two spots you're most likely to find someone that's going to give you any kind of value year one. I mean, even Will Anderson only had, 7 sacks last year? Even though he looked good, he didn't necessarily provide you the value last year for where you're going to wind up having to take him. And while the edges are good, there's no one on that level this year. So that's a down group. You just did the linebackers. That's a down group compared to last year as well.
Which was a down year.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I really don't think targeting rookie IDPs is necessarily the best idea for this. Honestly, I'm actually more interested in targeting guys like Drew Sanders or Trenton Simpson,
both of whom we will discuss later.
Absolutely, who are coming off rookie years where they didn't get the opportunity to play. Yep. So that's more. Yeah, exactly. Guys like that in the mid to late rounds who are probably going to be cheaper, honestly, than some of the rookies that go in similar rounds because of rookie fever. So
completely agree. And I think that this linebacker class, like Justin said, I just wrote the prospect article on it, and I put 15 names in there with some bonus ones. And most of them, there's the top name, which I guess I'll just spoil it. Edgerrin Cooper from Texas A&M is my top linebacker. You know, Brugler and Jeremiah have had him in their top 25 overall players, I believe. He's really the top one. Like, there's a couple other names, but really it's a lot of guys that are hyper athletic or just big thumpers. So it's kind of a lot of players who this time next year on this show would be like, hey, in the same Trenton Simpson, Diane Henley. There's the other name, Drew Sanders mold of didn't do much as a rookie, but this is a breakout, someone you grab for their sophomore year into their junior year to grab. So that's how this class is lining up too. So I would agree with everything you've said, Justin.
Okay. Yeah, and I forget. I think it was John Macri for PFF who put out a tweet, or I guess it's still a tweet, basically talking about the progression of how defensive linemen is not really linear. I can't remember exactly what was in the tweet, but it's basically you need to be really patient with defensive linemen. So even Will Anderson is not like a lock to produce necessarily in 2024, but typically you start to really see the payoff when they get through year 4.
Jalen Phillips going into this year.
Yeah.
No, that was a huge part of your analysis going into this season, but injuries suck.
Might be Odafe Owe coming up. Oh. We'll see.
Oh yeah.
He started to show enough that he might be getting there.
Oh yeah. Alrighty, so I think that does it for this question.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so thank you again to Zion Penumbra 4395. Probably butchering that, so my bad if that's the case. Our next question comes from Stu Foria 7623. Which love good Stu. And that question is the crux of it. Where does Caleb Williams fit into rookie drafts, more specifically in one quarterback leagues? So the question itself was that they have a need at quarterback. Would we take Caleb Williams in the top 5 of over some of those iffy wide receivers. So assuming it's a one quarterback league here, where do you stand on this one, Justin?
That's about the earliest I would even look at it. Personally, I'm probably trying to see if anyone else is willing to trade. I'll try to address my quarterback situation in a different way, I guess, before doing that. But he's definitely in play at 105.
I agree.
So I'm willing to take him there. I know Joe, like he was teasing already, does not have him as quarterback one. So he would be of the mindset. I'll let you answer it for yourself. But.
Yeah, so I think first, just to get out of the way, the top four, we have Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunes, in whatever order, then Brock Bowers, the tight end. Those are the top four in one quarterback league in pretty much any format, even IDP heavy leagues. With Edrin Cooper, as I talked about, I can't imagine a scoring system that I'm taking him over one of those four.
Well, I mean, especially I wouldn't project a single defensive player probably at the top 10 at this point, and all four of those guys are probably top 10 picks.
As high as I am on Cooper and some of those other guys, I do think, I know Ricky and I have talked about it a few times in Mock Draft Mondays, but I would be really still, if he gets in the first round, it'd be surprising still, even though he's the clear top guy at the position. So there's no chance I would take him over one of those guys. But another part of this question is there are three legitimate quarterbacks this year. So if this was a year where Caleb Williams was the only quarterback, like if he's in the Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis class, yeah, I would for sure be willing to take him at 105. But with there's being Drake May, Jane Daniels, and then there are three other quarterbacks who might get first round capital, I would definitely be willing to push back a little bit on the 105 for Williams. If you have two first round picks, like if you're sitting at 105 and 109, take whoever your next receiver is, whether it's a Brian Thomas, Keon Coleman, whoever else.
Any type of round two running back potentially in a good spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, and if that's the case, then, or in that scenario, take that receiver, the top running back, and then if you're stuck with Jane Daniels as QB3 or Drake May as QB3 at 109, sweet. Jane Daniels, also to spoil, is my QB3 for real draft, but for fantasy football purposes, those three are super close together. Daniels honestly could be number one with our rushing upside. So
yeah, it's all going to be longevity, but I mean that's a risk with any quarterback, really. Yeah. So May needs to pan out as a passer in order to hold long-term value. So Daniels is the lock to give you that rushing upside. So
yeah, I don't hate if you have one quarterback way ahead of the others, like if you're in on Caleb Williams as a generational prospect, but aren't in on Daniels or May at all, and they, for some reason, fall down draft boards, I'm okay with taking him at 105, but I do think there's more efficient, not the right word, but there's another way you could go about it. I do think.
Okay. We had one other question.
Yeah. And thank you again to Stuforia 7623. Yeah. This last one is a fun one. This is from Zion Penumbra 4395. So a couple great questions. Thank you. Do you want to hit on what the crux of this one is?
Yeah, so it's really hitting on linebackers who can rush the passer and are good in coverage. Is the main crux of it. So they're looking for interceptions, interception yards, fumbles, sacks.
Yep.
So that's
he mentioned a couple names in here, and I guess for me, when I was looking at it, I just kind of took out all of the, like he mentioned Hassan Reddick. I'm not considering him for this one, just the D-line linebacker versatility. I'm just purely focusing on actual linebackers here. Just in any scenario, would rather put a Reddick type or a TJ Watt at defensive line.
Yeah, if unless it's like crazy scoring on sacks and like where those guys are just scoring so much, then I guess you could consider it. But
Yeah. But at that point, I would rather grab one of these guys who we're going to talk about and put them there and then have Reddick at your D-line spot, and then you're getting crazy points. So do you want to go ahead and give some names, or me? You want to give these?
Go ahead.
Okay. So the first name I want to give is Ernest Jones. He is actually my top dynasty linebacker right now and was number one in Porg's dynasty linebacker ranking a couple weeks ago. He is the best blitzing linebacker in the game. His pass rush win rate, that one's always so hard to say, is just stupid high. It is the fifth best mark amongst all players that had at least 50 pass rush snaps this season. It was better, same level as Aaron Donald, higher than Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa. Like, he's incredible there, and he rushes the passer. I think only one linebacker rushed the passer more than he did, or he might have been the top. But that's something he's used on blitzes all the time. He is becoming a great all-around linebacker as well, improving coverage. So he's the number one guy for me there.
Question for you.
Yes.
How do you feel about Coach Shula is the new defensive coordinator with Raheem Morris off to Atlanta?
It definitely takes a hit without having Raheem there. Just Morris was so good about like just using his best players to the best of their ability. But I definitely would think with that McVay team that they would utilize their players more. I'm less bullish on he's the 101 IDP guy, dynasty guy, but still have him there.
Spoiler alert for those. Once we're done with this is the last question we have in queue without some new ones coming in, but we're going to talk coaching hires. Sorry for that, but we'll get to more in depth on some of these guys here in a bit. But sorry, keep going with some of the other names.
No, you brought up good. Other names he brought up. Thank you for getting me back on track there. Yeah. Frankie Louvu, who after his 2022 season, absolutely blowing up with how many sacks did he have that year? He got close to double digits, didn't he?
I don't remember. I'll look it up while you're chatting.
But my concern there is that the reason that Louvu's numbers, especially in the sack department, dropped this year was with Shaq Thompson getting hurt, and then all 7 of the other middle linebackers they tried either got hurt or weren't very good. So Louvu had to take a lot of the pure linebacker responsibilities back and wasn't able to be used as a weapon as much. And with the Panthers kind of being, well, the Bears have the first pick from them, so we know how they were. Didn't really have many opportunities there. So they'd really need to improve on the defense. Shaq would either need to be healthy or get a real Mike in there to help him. But that is a sneaky name off a down year.
I've got 7 sacks in 2022.
Was it only 7? Wow. Felt like it was a lot more than that. I think he had a couple turnovers too, is maybe what I'm thinking. This question, the asker also brought up Jordan Brooks, Patrick Queen, who are also very good blitzing linebackers. I think a lot of it with them, other players we need to, who are free agents this year, so where they end up is a question.
Yeah, if you're talking Patrick Queen, I actually think it's Trenton Simpson is the name you want to target because I would expect. I'm not sure exactly where Queen goes. I don't think Seattle actually has the cap space, but I kind of targeted that as a potential flag, him following Mike McDonald out there. Yeah. Or I actually think his best spot, because I don't think they have that. Sorry, I don't think Seattle has the cap space. I actually believe he might wind up in Miami. Spoiler alert, their defensive line coach, the Ravens defensive line coach is the new defensive coordinator in Miami. So we'll touch on those coaching hires as well as buys and sells. But for Queen specifically, that's kind of projecting him to land there. Brooks, I am honestly not sure who signs him. There's a lot of teams that are going to be needing linebackers, especially when you look at some of these teams that have been really good this year. The San Francisco 49ers pay their linebackers. The Baltimore Ravens paid or invested in their linebackers with draft capital. Yeah. Like, it's kind of coming back around where high-end linebackers are getting paid and are kind of worth it, honestly, for teams. So,
yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. Devin White is another name who's a good blitzer, but really depends on where he ends up. think those three, White, Queen, and Brooks, all ended up with. These are looking at PFF's metrics for pass rush win rate. Pass rush win rate. They're all like top 10 in that metric. Just their pass rush grade amongst linebackers. Those are even with pretty low pass rush snaps.
White is going to be really interesting to see because he's been trending down for a few years now.
Yeah.
But I do expect someone to give him a decent bag of money for 1 year. Mm-hmm. And hopefully it's a linebacker coach. We'll talk about him a little bit more later too, actually. But Caden Ellis is a fun one. He should step right into that same role that Ernest Jones had, in my opinion. He's a good blitzer. He showed that when he was playing down in New Orleans. Mm-hmm. He did a little less of it this year in Atlanta, I think because Trey Anderson got hurt.
It was a lot of the Frankie Luvu issue. Just their actual Mike was hurt, so he had to be that guy, just when he's best.
I know you flagged Ivan Pace Jr. as an interesting one. Hicks is a free agent, I believe.
Yeah.
So Pace should be the starter there.
Also, just really any linebacker in Minnesota, just that Brian Flores defense. And has Wink Martindale hasn't gotten the job, has he?
For which team? I'm sorry.
No, is Wink Martindale anywhere? I don't think he's got a DC job.
I don't think so.
That's unfortunate for linebackers. That'd be very fun for the scoring.
Yeah. But we brought up one second-year guy, Drew Sanders. I don't remember if he said his name or not. There's another interesting one. I really like. We'll talk about him in a little bit too. Drew Tranquil. Depending on where he goes, I do believe that if I were Seattle specifically trying to run that scheme without Roquan, he would be one I would be very interested in targeting.
And he's probably not super expensive. That's a good fit. I like that.
There aren't many linebackers that can blitz and cover and do all of that stuff the way Tranquil can. I think he kind of unlocked that defense in Kansas City.
Yep.
So he's the one I'm most interested to see where he lands of all the free agent linebackers.
Yeah, Drew Sanders, like you said, is another big name to watch depending on what happens with Singleton and Jewell. He was an edge rusher at Alabama/Arkansas. He did a lot of edge rushing and pure linebacker play, and he even did with the Broncos this year, so it's a name to watch. Our own Michael Sicoli's favorite player, Robert Spillane. Another name for this. Then Alex Anzalone had great pass rush metrics, and so did Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah of the Browns. So just some other names to keep in mind there.
Terrell Bernard and Demario Davis had good years this year. Davis is getting older. I'm not sure where that one's going to wind up. And Bernard, I think a lot of that was tied to Milano's injury, so I'm kind of curious how that whole situation plays out. But, they're possibilities that I'm interested in, but I don't think I'd have them as high as how they performed this year in pass rushing.
I'd agree. I think they're definitely names versus a normal ranking that would prop a little bit up just with that having that ability.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any other names. I don't see any others on the dock.
That's
a lot of them. Really, the top guys here were all free agents, it feels like.
Yeah, that's a good call, Sean, in the comments, bringing up that Tampa should be in the linebacker market as well. I'm not sure exactly what their cap situation is. I know it was terrible last year. It should be a little better this year, but
I can take a look at that real quick.
Well, they need to bring back Evans and Baker as well. So,
2024, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 10th in cap space right now.
Okay, so they got some money to spend.
Yep. Until they do all their re-signings.
But yeah, Levante David and Devin White are both free agents. There's a few teams where they're losing their linebackers. So, they're one of them. Seattle. Yeah.
Pittsburgh just has none right now that are healthy.
Yeah, I think a lot of those guys signed one-year deals too. I can't remember offhand, but I can't remember.
And then got hurt.
Yeah.
All right, and just another reminder, anyone watching right now, first, thank you for watching. Feel free to give us a follow at FFF Ballers or me at Jolo63 and IDP Guys. at IDP guys, and any of our writers who some of them are commenting right now, Sean, Steve, and Nathan. Thank you all. And yeah, so let's get into some other topics we had prepared, but including first one, as Justin alluded to, coaching changes.
Yeah, so let's run through the head coaches first.
There were a lot.
Yeah, what, eight head coaches?
Yeah.
So let's see. Mike McDonald, like we talked about, landed in Seattle. He's the defensive coordinator for the Ravens this year. Jim Harbaugh left University of Michigan to take over the Chargers. Like we talked about, Raheem Morris is headed to Atlanta. Antonio Pierce got the interim tag removed in Vegas. Dave Canales, who was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers OC this year, landed in Carolina. Gerard Mayo got promoted in New England. Brian Callahan left Cincinnati's OC job to become the Titans head coach. And Dan Quinn left the Cowboys D coordinator job to take the head coaching gig in Washington. So we kind of grouped the OCs for some of these defensive coaches in here. So we have OC and DC hires down below a little bit to talk about too, but we'll probably touch on just the teams in general for some of these coaches. So what's your favorite of these? I mean, for IDP purposes, it's got to be Seattle, right?
It's definitely either Seattle or Atlanta are the top ones for me. Raheem Morris is someone who I've loved as a coach forever. I was hoping the Colts were going to hire him last cycle. Pretty happy with Shane Steichen, but yeah, it's one of these two. McDonald had an incredible defense with the Ravens and with Michigan before. Great thing with him is that he did not have a specific scheme. He had his definite ways he leaned, but would very much just was a matchup nightmare for opposing offenses and would adjusted better than any other D coordinator in the game, really. Then we know what the Rams defense looked like the past couple of years with negative talent, minus Aaron Donald. So those are the ones I'm most psyched about.
So does that make probably what Julian Love signed did he sign it was like a 4-year contract, wasn't it? I can't remember offhand.
3 or 4.
So does he get the Kyle Hamilton kind of star role?
So I think that's probably going to be more of the Devon Witherspoon. It's going to change a lot. Neither of those guys have the Kyle Hamilton sort of combination of size, speed, and just everything. But I think there's going to be a little bit of a hybrid there. Devon Witherspoon is a huge stock up to me, which is probably a spoiler. I don't know if I put his name in the doc for there, but really both of them I think it's a good sign for. All 3 safeties on the Ravens were really good for fantasy. Marcus Williams, Geno Stone, and Kyle Hamilton, even when all 3 of them were playing together. So
yeah, I think Stone's a free agent, and it wouldn't shock me if he followed him out, McDonald out.
That would make sense, so especially with Quandre Diggs could be a cap casualty, along with Jamal Adams. So
Harbaugh, did they announce a title for Greg Roman? Greg Roman got hired out there, but I don't know that they announced it.
No, he doesn't have a title.
So
I don't think he's going to end up being their offensive coordinator.
I mean, that's probably a good thing. If he's just like the run game coordinator, great. He can coordinate a run game. But, man, don't touch Herbert's value.
No, please no.
Zach Robinson, Atlanta's offensive coordinator with Morris, was a fantastic hire. He was one of the big names there. So, I mean, yesterday Morris in the press conference specifically mentioned Bijan and Drake London as 2 big reasons he wanted to go there. Sad Kyle Pitts manager here. But
same.
It's all going to be who's the head coach. Getsy in Vegas, everyone's like, oh, they're going to bring Fields there. You and I were kind of talking about this. How can you say that the Chicago offense was bad with Fields and Getsy together and then want to bring it to Vegas?
The only possible way it makes sense is if they were getting overruled because I know they started the first 10 weeks of the last 2 years were struggling massively in trying a traditional offense. That would only way it could make sense is if that was delegated down from Eberflus or Poles. But that's a defensive head coach, so that would be weird.
So my expectation is they think that Fields was the one to blame for the issues Getsy did a good job getting players open and good scheme, so they like that. That's the only way it kind of tracks for me. So I actually think it's a terrible landing spot for Fields and don't expect it at all at this point.
I just think it'd be an awkward spot.
Yeah.
Again, unless there is something coming up from Eberflus and Ryan Poles, the GM.
Yeah.
But that feels like a big stretch. And if that happens, then I really think that's a big referendum on those two in the Bears organization more than anything.
Canales, I love the hire for Bryce Young. He's, spoiler alert, on the buy low, especially in Superflex leagues.
Not just because he's short.
Sorry. No, but Canales does do a good job of helping short quarterback or broken quarterbacks improve. Look at what he did. He architected the offense. I think he was the quarterback coach under Shane Waldron in Seattle 2 years ago. 2 years ago, yeah, when Geno broke out, and then last year he was the OC for Baker in his bounce back year. So, I mean, I really like the hire personally for Bryce
Canales
Young.
was in Seattle from 2010 through 2022. Quarterbacks coach 4 of those years and 2 years as the passing game coordinator. So he did a lot with Russell Wilson.
So he's got experience with quarterbacks with size limitations, and he is good at it. In my mind, it seems like he's good at taking what a quarterback does well and accentuating it. So I expect more bootlegs, getting Young out of the pocket, letting him create that way, which is more of what he was able to do well at Alabama.
Now let's just hope they get some receivers.
Mayo, Van Pelt. My big question there is really just as a Pats fan, like, what are they going to try to do a patchwork this year, or are they going to try to build it up right? Because the defense could win now. That defense is a playoff caliber defense, and they missed the play caller there, but the pieces are all in place, and every defensive player basically said, we want Mayo to be the head coach. Like, the players love him. So it'll be interesting to see the Browns scheme, because that's where Alex Van Pelt, the new OC, came from. Personally, I'm kind of hoping for a Jacoby Brissett situation, maybe I would like us probably to trade down, maybe with Atlanta to come up for their quarterback they want, grab 8, get either a tackle or a wide receiver at 8, pick up some extra draft capital, draft either the receiver or tackle in the second round, and then hopefully grab Spencer Rattler at the top of the third. Something like that would be kind of the way I would build it, but we'll see. Callahan, I know you're always hard on the Bengals, so what are your thoughts on Callahan in Tennessee?
It's an interesting fit. He definitely has seemed like a type who'd get the most out of his players. He's gotten a lot of praise for scheme and stuff. I think the Bengals scheme, I've not been overly impressed with it. I feel like they've taken a long time to adjust, like Joe Burrow's limitations this year. It took, when he had the calf injury, I think it took them a long time, like way longer than it should have with other offensive coordinators to get to a good point there. I'm curious as to what offense he's going to bring. So if you think of 2 quarterbacks with different styles, Will Levis and Joe Burrow are not the same quarterback at all. 2 very different types of players. So if they bring the Cincinnati offense, the McVay offshoot offense, it's going to look very weird. But I guess Zach Taylor's version was a lot different. If it's the Joe Burrow offense, it's going to be really ugly with Will Levis. But honestly,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Sorry. It shows a lot for Rand Carthon is the GM, correct? That he is the guy. He's the main guy, the main power source there. But I don't think it's a bad hire. It was weird that it was the second hire, I guess, behind Mayo.
Yeah. Van Pelt, to me, actually would have made sense. Like that scheme in Tennessee, that play action, take deep shots, that's kind of what Levis does well. He could kind of run that Browns offense, I think, at a high level. And you had Henry there. I don't think he's going to be back, but I do think it's good news for the passing game. Levis, Spears. I don't know if they keep Hopkins there. I don't know what they think of Treylon Burks.
Hopkins was a 2-year deal, wasn't it?
It was, but that doesn't mean they need to keep him necessarily. Like if they're doing it as a rebuild, then I would expect them to let him go.
Who is their offensive coordinator? We're seeing that.
Sorry,
Callahan has never called an offense, and in pretty much every stop, he has had a quarterback who ran the offense, whether it's Peyton Manning, Matthew Stafford, Joe Burrow, even Derek Carr.
Nick Holz, Holz.
I've heard.
Let me pull it up and see where he's coming from. It's been a while. I'm blanking.
Oh, he went to De La Salle High School and to Colorado. Wow. That's fun. Okay, so he was with the Raiders for a long time. Okay, but yeah, so I'm really interested in how that offense is going to look. Again, Callahan has never called an offense, at least not recently. And he's always been with a quarterback who really did a lot of the mental heavy lifting, which doesn't mean that I don't think that means Callahan can't. I know he did do a lot with the game planning, but it's just very interesting how that is going to work.
He came from Jacksonville, though. It's kind of he's another guy who hasn't called plays, so
yeah,
that'll be interesting. And last one, Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. You wanna touch on that one at all?
I like the Dan Quinn hiring. I don't think is bad at all. I think it's getting a lot of hate right now and looks weird, just order of events. But if he was hired, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, if he was hired right after Brian Callahan was hired, I don't think it'd be really that weird looking. It's just the Ben Johnson withdrawing and then all the firestorms from both sides after that just kind of makes it look a little gross.
It's going to be interesting to see if Ben Johnson, kind of do teams blame him for it, because it was weird, the timing that they were on a flight to Detroit and he pulls out of the job. But
yeah,
I also don't blame him for what they played 2 days before that. So then if he really wasn't thinking about it at all and really is focused on the Lions and the game plan like he should be, then taking the first day to figure it out and your agent getting the message out to the team the next day, I don't see as a huge deal. So it's just
I think a lot's being made of it. I don't have a real opinion on that, whether the timing of it, maybe, timing doesn't look great. There could have been more to it. Could have been they didn't know they were coming and they're like, oh, wait, no. I don't know. But I don't think it's going to affect him for future jobs. I think he very much just wants to bide his time, and he's young, so he can take his time, really. But the Cliff Kingsbury offensive coordinator hire, I really hate. I don't think Cliff is a good NFL coach. Again, the Arizona offense was so stale. They had a good first 5 plays sometimes, and then he couldn't adjust at all. Maybe that's part of just going from Texas Tech to the NFL, but he was hired as the USC offensive coordinator before accepting the Arizona head coach job, and I remember USC fans were not psyched about it. Even I think the air raid, it takes a very specific quarterback, takes a very specific offensive line, and I don't know. It's so weird.
What are your thoughts if they draft a quarterback Daniels or May? Assuming they don't trade up for Williams, which is what everyone's trying to connect the dots on because he coached him at USC
this year.
But Waldron also is from the same academy where Caleb Williams is working right now. So, there's just all
with any of them, all 3 of them are athletic enough. All 3 quarterbacks can get out of the way of trouble, can make off. Yeah, I don't think it's a good landing spot for those quarterbacks. I would be as a Drake May stan, I would be very scared if he ended up there. It's I just don't think Cliff is a good offensive designer. I don't think he relies so much on his quarterback being a hero. And that's a thing with we've seen with a lot of great quarterbacks that have struggled. Justin Herbert's had that. Drake May this year at UNC. Trying to think of other ones. Names just disappeared, but even Kyler Murray, where so much was put on them where they had to be a hero, where they make so many mistakes and their development is dragged down a lot. Trevor Lawrence's rookie year, and a lot this year too. I'm really not a fan of this hire.
Fair. All right. So I think we touched on a lot of those. Let's hop down to. You want to do offense, or I guess actually we're IDP. Let's do defensive coordinators first.
Yeah. Yes. I think
so
we covered a lot of offensive coordinators too.
yeah, there's a few new names that we can at least kind of touch on after this. But let's start with the defensive coordinators. We got 15-ish minutes or so left.
Let's hit the big name first. Vic Fangio.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Stock up Nakobe Dean. Stock up Hassan Reddick. Like, I'm
Stock
sad
up for whatever linebacker they get.
Yeah, I'm sad for Sidney Brown missing the year because I would really like to see him playing that Javon Holland deep safety role in this defense. Like,
that Fangio defense is one of the only ones, and specifically Vic's, not the offshoots, where like the deep safety is an elite safety. Justin Simmons in Denver, Holland this year. Damn.
Yeah. The other one to really touch on is Baltimore, and not just because of Baltimore, but so Baltimore's defensive coordinator this year was Mike McDonald, now in Seattle. They promoted Zach Orr from linebacker coach to defensive coordinator. However, Anthony Weaver, his defensive line coach, is now the defensive coordinator in Miami. And, oh, by the way, I think he was a defensive back coach. Denard Wilson left Baltimore and is now the defensive coordinator in Tennessee. So who are the positional coaches on that defense with a new defensive play caller in Baltimore? And what does it mean for that defense? Like, I don't expect – they were, like, fantastic this year. I'm a little scared of a lot of the players besides Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton for next year.
Yeah, those two are their stars, so feel good about them, but even still probably stock down a tiny bit. Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting. I'm looking to see if any others have been hired. Not seeing any. No. Yeah, it still has Denard Wilson as their DB coach, so
so
on their website.
The other good news, well, I think it's great for Titans. I don't think it helps their IDP assets. Like, their coach did a good job. Weaver is probably about,
Weaver and then I'd say Ryan Nielsen in Jacksonville. I think that's probably not stock down more than anything. Wouldn't say it's stock up, but not stock down.
The biggest thing, especially with Weaver in Miami, so like, they have Chubb, and hopefully Phillips comes back from the Achilles injury and does well. So good for the defensive line. They don't have linebackers to begin with. Like, that's an area where I think Miami hopefully will invest this offseason. And their cornerbacks are in good shape. Javon Holland as the deep guy should be good. You could put him right into that Hamilton role if you wanted to, probably. He's not at quite that level, but he could play it. So I do like the Weaver hire for the Dolphins, even though, they were talking about they had Fangio there. I don't think it's not stock up from Fangio, but
yeah, it could have been way worse.
Yeah. Like you said, Nielsen, hopefully they bring back Josh Allen. Great for the linebackers who should be blitzing a ton. He's coming from, was it Atlanta, right?
Yep, Atlanta and New Orleans before.
Yeah.
Turned that Atlanta defense from garbage to really good, really solid.
So it should be good, especially for the linebackers, Lloyd and Oluokun. Those are the two big names there. I'm not sure about Trayvon Walker if it helps him at all. It's good for Josh Allen.
It should be a help. He really helped unlock Carl Granderson before this year and really helped keep Cam Jordan going through his early 30s. I do think that's a good stock for Walker. And then also for safeties, could be good for Jenkins, Cisco, what Jesse Bates did this year, which granted he's a significantly better talent than those safeties, but he was also put in a lot better positions. So it's fun for him.
What do you make of the Packers hire? Jeff Hafley was the head coach at Boston College and got promoted to be the defensive coordinator for the Packers. Honestly, I don't know enough about the guy to like.
Yeah,
I'm struggling to. what to do.
Yeah,
with
he was a DB coach with Cleveland and San Francisco in the mid 2010s. Tampa Bay before that. Good for their defensive backs, I guess, but yeah, I can't really give a full opinion on it. It's an upgrade. It has to be an upgrade from Joe Barry, though. That's been so stale and predictable and gross for a couple of years now.
Like I want to like Quay Walker. I want to like Rashawn Gary.
Devontae Wyatt, Kenny Clark, all of them, but like
it's hard to know what you're going to get with them.
The DB room is in total flux.
Yeah, they got to draft a safety this year finally.
I would say a corner too, because Jari Alexander seems like he hates being in Green Bay, and he's always getting suspended or for something, for conduct detrimental to the team or something weird. But I don't know.
Yeah, the Bills promoted their linebacker coach to DC, but it's really not there. It's McDermott's defense, so I don't think it really changes all that much. Jesse Minter, you're more the college guy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a fan. Minter, he followed Harbaugh, but he was probably going to be a defensive coordinator in the NFL this year or next year. Anyway, he is crazy that Mike McDonald already has someone in his coaching tree. The first year he became a head coach, but he replaced McDonald at Michigan. He is great defensive mind, similar sort of defense. It's kind of basically the defensive scheme is make your life hell. So it doesn't matter what type of offense you run. We saw what he did to Washington on national stage and to Ohio State. I think it's a good hire.
So stock up for Derwin, stock up for Tuli Tuipulotu.
Yeah, and I think a big thing with it, Brandon Staley was a genius mind, but almost too much, especially when you factor in the head coaching stuff. It's going to be a much simpler, much more disciplined defense.
Okay. Be interesting to see if they just bring Henley up, if they go sign a linebacker. They don't have much cap space. By that, I mean like negative $70 million that they have to fix.
They are 29th.
I believe. Yeah, I think they have to cut probably Mike Williams, restructure Keenan Allen, probably cut one of Bosa or Mack, and even then they're like just under the cap. So it's not going to be pretty. That's why Tuli Tuipulotu, I didn't put him on the list. I don't know if you did, but I don't know if managers are even willing to sell him, but he should be a starting edge player for the Chargers next year.
I agree.
Shula, we kind of touched on. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. I was just confirming what you said.
Then the last couple we haven't really touched on. Covington was the defensive line coach for the Pats. The only real thing, like the scheme's probably going to be pretty similar without the play caller. My question here is more, and honestly, I have no idea what the answer actually is. Do they help the top end assets actually become legitimate IDP players, or do they keep the defense so multiple that it's just hard to trust anyone? You know?
It'll be interesting.
Yeah, the Patriots are going to be an interesting valuation all offseason. And then the last one is the Giants replace Wink Martindale with Shane Bowen, who's coming from the Titans defensive coordinator job. The linebackers are going to get better in tackle-heavy formats and worse in big play leagues because they're not going to blitz as much likely, but they always funnel tackles to linebackers really, really well in Tennessee. So,
yeah, and when I was doing for the earlier question about sack-heavy linebackers, Bobby Okereke kept coming up in that list for high usage. I was like, why is he here? Oh, Wink Martindale. Got it. So,
but he's more likely to be Azeez Ojulari level, racking up double-digit tackles weekly now. So I think he's going to play a very different game in 2024.
One that's more suited to Okereke's skills, I think. I think it's big stock up on him.
It all depends on how your IDPs are scored. Right.
Yeah.
We got 5-ish minutes. Are there any?
I don't see any other questions in there.
Kellen Moore and Arthur Smith. Let's talk about those two real quick. As well as we talked Shane Waldron, we'll see. I like Clint Kubiak likely hire in New Orleans. The rest of them are all kind of.
That not been confirmed yet?
He's still coaching, so they can't.
Oh, that's right.
Right,
Super Bowl.
But I do like that for the Saints, especially if they're trying to keep Carr and maximize his potential. It should be good to put those types of like that system in place. I really like it for Kendrick Miller. I do expect they probably cut Kamara, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, he should wind up. Honestly, if I'm him, I'm going to be the Lightning to Javonte Williams Thunder in Denver next year.
Oh, that makes my Javonte shares sad.
Yeah, but I mean that's where I would expect him to go, is to follow Peyton out there.
That probably makes sense.
But then Kellen Moore, great news probably for Hurts. They go from bottom of the league in motion to a guy like Kellen Moore who likes to play fast, who likes to get his guys into good positions. I think this is going to be a good hire.
They're going to run more than 6 plays.
Yeah, I think it's a good hire for Jalen Hurts. He should bounce back to being a better passer than what they showed this year. So I do think it's probably stock up for the passing options in Philly.
I'd agree.
And I don't know who they bring in to be the running back with Swift as a pending free agent, but
that's a good question.
I don't know. And if they ban the tush push, maybe they get some more rushing touchdowns on the goal line, but I don't think it really changes much. It's at best an RB2 type player. Arthur Smith is gross for everybody except for probably Najee Harris.
I think it's fine for George Pickens. I mean, Drake London had the 3rd highest target share amongst wide receiver ones this year.
But is he the one, or is Deontay the
Smith typically trends towards the bigger wide receiver, so I would expect that as well. I don't think it's a gross hire, really. The name is gross, but I mean, he was a really good offensive coordinator. There's a reason he got the Atlanta job in the first place. I mean, look what he did with Ryan Tannehill. It went from a reject to winning playoff games.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they talk about competition for Pickett. Tannehill and Pickett is probably a likely scenario for Pittsburgh. We'll see.
Makes a lot of sense.
We'll see what Sikoli thinks of that combination. I know he's not a big Pickett guy, but
no one should be at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah. Are there any? So we'll hop down. Are there any guys you really want to touch on? Oh, sorry.
The finished offensive coordinators, Liam Cohen in Tampa Bay, super uninspiring. I think he was fine in a couple stops. He was okay with the Rams on multiple occasions, and weird that he's getting other shots, but Eric Bieniemy isn't. Bengals. I think you know more about pitcher than I do, but
he was their
quarterback
coach. So I expect it to be a pretty similar. I mean, it's still Zach Taylor's offense, and he helped get Jake Browning ready. So I don't think it's a bad hire, honestly.
Ken Dorsey in Cleveland is the other one, and that'll be interesting. I like it.
He got a raw deal.
Oh, yeah. God, did he?
It'll be interesting to see who they bring in to be the wide receiver 2, the field stretcher. I would like to see Hollywood Brown there with Deshaun Watson, but I fear with Dorsey there, maybe it's just Gabe Davis.
Cedric Tillman time. Let's do it.
I think they're going to sign someone.
I think so too. Fingers crossed it's Tillman though, but yeah.
I think we probably, with where we're at, we should just, I think, probably wrap it up and.
I think so.
Touch on buys and sells with some of the stuff with the rookies next week.
I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense. Sweet. So thank you all for tuning in for the first Mailbag show. As Justin said at the top, and you can see at the top of your screen, you can email us at mailbag@idpguys.org, and we will answer any of those questions and any that you ask us on the show. This is
a weird week. I know the ticker says Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. This one is just a one-off. Going forward, we will be at 2 p.m. Eastern. At least that's the target.
That is the goal, like the waiver wire show was for those who were with us this year.
So,
but yeah. Thanks again. Subscribe to IDP Guys at idpguys.org. You can follow Justin at FFFBallers on X, and you can follow me at Jolo63. We will see you guys at 2 o'clock Eastern next Tuesday. And send us some emails or DMs or just on Twitter, and we'll get them in there as well, but preferably the email. See you next week. Thank you so much, and may the force be with you. Have fun with the